One of the most well-known deserts in the world, the Sahara, is typically pictured as having endless sandscapes, a sweltering sun and no sign of people. The golden dunes appear to have always been present, however this is untrue. You wonder what lurks beneath millions of tons of sand as you stare at the Sahara with its infinite sands and motionless dunes. I suggest going back in time in this subject to determine whether this region of Africa has always been parched and a dead desert. What lies beneath the Sahara sands? Let's investigate. The word Sahara is a popular Arabic word that translates to just desert. The Sahara Desert is not the world's largest desert, despite what many people think. Although the Sahara is the largest of the typical deserts with sand, heat and dunes, the Antarctic desert still reigns supreme. Over 8.5 million square kilometers of the African continent, or nearly one-third, is taken up by the desert. The Atlantic Red, the Mediterranean seas encircle the Sahara, which is spread across 10 nations in Africa. The desert steadily advances southward, claiming an additional 5 to 10 kilometers a year. Despite the Sahara's reputation of having tall sand dunes, cactus, and little in the way of plants or animals, only 20% of the land is actually covered in sand. Rocky plateaus make up most of the landscape. Even though there are only approximately 4,000 species of animals in the area, some of the mammals include gerbils, jerboas, antelopes, jackals, dune cats, and mongooses. The majority of these people are nocturnal, and during the day they seek refuge from the harsh sun in shelters. This is due to the desert's temperature regime's propensity for significant daytime swings. The sand is heated by the sun more than twice as much as the average air temperature of 35 degrees, giving the impression of being in a fiery frying pan. Only 75 millimeters of rain fall on average each year in the dry, scorching climate of the Sahara Desert. The greatest recorded temperature is just over 58 degrees, and at night the temperature quickly lowers to almost zero. Mountain plateaus can experience frost at negative 18 degrees. Despite its harsh temperature, the desert supports a wide range of plant life, including over 30 indigenous species of fern, date palms, cactus, and ficus. The rocks are harmed by temperature variations, which result in their cracking and slow transformation into sand, which replenishes the sand layer in the desert. In the Sahara, sand dunes can be as high as 200 meters, and some of these dunes emit strange melodies made of vibrating sand grains caused by wind. Transparent bits of weathered glass, thought to have originated from meteorite strikes millions of years ago, are also found in unusual locations of the Sahara. Mirages are another fascinating feature of the Sahara, while the only river flowing through the desert's borders is the Nile. Although rain is scarce, there is a permanent lake like the Eonyanga group of lakes in the Sahara. Despite the harsh climate, the Sahara is rich in unique geological and biological features that continue to fascinate scientists and explorers alike. How many people traveling through the desert have suddenly seen oases with water and palm trees, thinking that they are about 2 or 3 kilometers away from them? In fact, it is sometimes necessary to walk 500 or more kilometers to the nearest water. A mirage is an optical phenomenon in the atmosphere. A refraction of the light stream occurs at the boundary between the layers of air that differs in density and temperature. More than 150,000 mirages are observed in the Sahara. Even maps of places where they can be seen have been created. The difference from reality lies in the fact that, together with a really visible image of an object, its reflection in the atmosphere is visible. The main wonder of the Sahara, and one of the main mysteries of the planet, is located in Mauritania, and it's called a rigid structure. This is a ring structure with a diameter of 50 kilometers and dating back several 100 million years. For a very long time, the eye of the desert served as a reference point for astronauts because it's perfectly visible from the orbit, and this is the only obvious landmark in the vast expanse of an unremarkable desert. There are several hypotheses explaining this phenomenon, according to one of which the appearance of a ring structure is the result of erosion. The highest point of the Sahara is the peak of Emikusi, rising 3 kilometers, 400 meters above sea level. Rich deposits of gas and oil have been discovered on the territory of the desert. In the Sahara, under the influence of southern winds, monstrous sandstorms are born, which then hit the surrounding countries and sometimes rage for several days. For example, every year, powerful winds bring down clouds full of sand raised in the Sahara on the African island country of Cape Verde, creating many inconveniences for local residents. Despite the harsh conditions, about 2 million people live in the Sahara, mainly Berbers and Tuaregs. In medieval times, trade caravans traveled through the desert, the largest of which, according to Arab historians, consisted of almost 12,000 camels. In order to uncover the most important secrets, one should go deeper into the very heart of this desert. There's a treasure of the Sahara under a lot of dunes. There is very little water on the surface of the desert because of the low rainfall, but under the sands of the Sahara, there are vast pools of groundwater. It is thanks to these pools that oases can be found in the Sahara. Areas are rich in vegetation. Most of the oases here arise in places where water from underwater rivers makes its way to the surface. Some countries located on the territory of the groundwater of the Sahara are engaged in the extraction of this priceless liquid. The most fertile in this regard is the northeastern part of the desert where Sudan, Chad, Egypt and Libya are located. The aquifer in Libya is more extensive. Underground water has been extracted here since the 1970s, and in 1983, work began on a huge project, the purpose of which was to deliver drinking water to a dehydrated settlement in Libya. Regular water supply from all major cities of the country was established by the 1996 year. This grandiose system, called the Great Man-Made River, delivers 6.5 million cubic meters of drinking water every day. In 2008, it was entered into the Guinness Book of Records, recognizing it as the largest irrigation project. The Great Man-Made River consists of 1,300 wells, more than 500 meters deep, as well as numerous water pipes and reservoirs. All this would be impossible without the presence of an aquifer under the sands of the Sahara. It should be noted that this desert is much more generous to its inhabitants than it might seem at first glance. But in fact, the Sahara has not always been the way that we know it today. It's hard to believe that about 8,000 years ago, there was a green forest with lush vegetation, white grass meadows and clear lakes in the site of the Sahara. The Sahara has its own Stonehenge, which is called Nabti Playa. This structure consists of 2 3-meter stones weighing several tons lined up in circles of 5 rows. Nabti Playa is older than Stonehenge by more than 4,500 years, making it one of the oldest archaeological sites in history. In the very center of the Sahara, archaeologists have discovered ancient rock carvings, indicating that primitive people once lived in these parts. Probably in these places, there were many settlements of people who cultivated the land and raised cattle. There was also a huge Taman Rayset river that flowed into the Atlantic Ocean. It was discovered in 2015 using 3-dimensional satellite images. They also found the edges of Lake Chad, which in ancient times was much wider and deeper than it is now and was considered the largest on the planet. According to experts, the Sahara will likely become green once more in 10 to 12,000 years. Different theories have been put forth by scientists as to why the once green area became a dry desert. Some attribute the sun's burning of the land and the surviving flora on livestock, which eat so many plants that they don't have time to grow and reflect sunlight. Others, on the other hand, assert that grazing and distillation have increased the Sahara's lifespan by 500 years. Others, though, are certain that the tilt of the Earth's axis, which changes every 20,000 years, is to blame. The direction it moves in influences how strong the sun is. The Sahara's history begins in the Mesozoic era, when it was an ocean known as Tethys that was home to enormous extinct species of dinosaurs, whales, snakes and reptiles. Since the ocean vanished as a result of the continental separation, the middle of the Sahara has been discovered to contain the fossilized remnants of these extinct animals, including one of the world's largest dinosaurs. The Valley of the Whales is the current name of this location. All from me then. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the subscribe button right away and view the following one. I'm ready for you already.